My son announced he'd take control of my bank account at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. By 7:30 that night, he opened my refrigerator and stood frozen, staring at the completely empty shelves. The next morning, I watched from my lawyer's office as he realized everything he thought he knew about his helpless mother was a carefully constructed lie. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and explain how 48 years of being a devoted mother led to this moment, and why that empty refrigerator was just the beginning of my son's very bad week. It started when Stephen showed up at my house unannounced that Tuesday afternoon. I was in my garden, tending to my roses, when I heard his car pull into the driveway. He didn't come alone. His wife, Kristen, stepped out first, her face arranged in that fake concerned expression I'd learned to recognize over the past 5 months. "Mom, we need to talk," Stephen said, not even bothering with a hello. I brushed dirt from my gardening gloves. "About what, honey?" "About your situation." He glanced at Kristen, who nodded encouragingly. "We're worried about you living alone. At your age, managing finances, the house, everything. It's too much. I'm 72, not 92. I still drive, cook, garden, and manage a stock portfolio that would make most financial advisors weep with envy. But I knew where this was going. I'm managing just fine, Stephen. Mom." His voice took on that patronizing tone that made my teeth ache. "Be reasonable. We've noticed things. You forgot Tyler's birthday last month." I didn't forget. I sent a card and a check for $200. He texted me thank you. Kristen jumped in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Dorothy, we're just concerned. At your age, these little memory slips can be signs of something more serious. Little memory slips that never actually happened." I saw the game they were playing. Stephen pulled papers from his jacket. "I've made an appointment with Elder Care Services next week. They'll help us transition you to assisted living. In the meantime, I think it's best if I take over your bank accounts. Just temporarily, until we get things sorted." There it was. The real reason for this visit. "You want access to my accounts?" I kept my voice steady, though fury burned in my chest. "It's for your own protection, Mom. You're vulnerable to scams, fraud. Last week alone, I heard about 3 elderly women in Portland who lost everything to phone scammers. I hadn't been born yesterday, and I certainly wasn't going senile today. I'd suspected something was wrong for months. Stephen's sudden visits, Kristen's overly sweet concern, the way they'd started asking pointed questions about my finances, my will, my investments. "I see," I said quietly. "And if I refuse?" Stephen's face hardened. "Then we'll have to pursue other options. Legal options. No one wants that, Mom. But if you're not capable of making sound decisions, get out of my house." "Mom," I said, "get out." I stood up, pulling off my gardening gloves. "You come into my home, accuse me of being incompetent, threaten to take my money, and expect me to just smile and sign papers? Get out." Kristen touched Stephen's arm. "Honey, maybe we should give her time to think about this." "Time won't change facts," Stephen snapped. "Mom, whether you cooperate or not, this is happening. I've already consulted with attorneys. You have 1 week to make this easy, or we'll make it legal." They left. I stood in my garden, watching their car disappear down the street, and felt something inside me shift. This was my son. The boy I'd raised alone after his father died 15 years ago. The man I'd given $95,000 to start his business 5 years ago. Money he'd never paid back, never even mentioned again. And now, he wanted to declare me incompetent and take control of everything I'd worked my entire life to build. I walked inside, picked up my phone, and made 3 calls. The first was to my lawyer, Walter Bennett. The second was to my bank. The third was to Janet, my neighbor, who'd been my friend since before Stephen was born. "Janet, I need your help with something. How do you feel about a little acting?" By 6 o'clock, my house looked completely different. Every bit of food was gone from my refrigerator and pantry, packed into boxes in Janet's garage across the street. I'd emptied my medicine cabinet, leaving only a few expired bottles. I'd hidden my good jewelry, my important documents, my laptop. Then I called Stephen. Honey, I've been thinking about what you said. I made my voice small, confused. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Could you come by tonight? I'm scared. He arrived at 7:30 with Kristen. Both of them walked in wearing expressions of victory. I'm glad you're being reasonable, Mom, Stephen said. I'm just so confused, I murmured, playing my role perfectly. I can't remember if I ate today. Did I eat? Oh, Dorothy. Kristen's voice oozed fake sympathy. Let me make you something. She walked toward the kitchen. Stephen followed her. I heard the refrigerator door open. Then silence. Stephen. Kristen's voice was sharp. Your mother has no food, nothing. The refrigerator is completely empty. Stephen came back to the living room, his face pale. Mom, when did you last go shopping? I blinked at him, letting confusion cloud my features. Shopping? Was it Tuesday? Or was that last week? The pantry's empty too, Kristen called out. Stephen, there's nothing here. Not even bread. Not even crackers. I watched my son's face cycle through several emotions: concern, horror, guilt. And then, underneath it all, something else. Something calculating. I saw him glance at Kristen, saw the slight nod she gave him. This wasn't scaring them away from their plan. This was confirming everything they wanted to believe. Mom, this is serious. Stephen knelt beside my chair. You can't live like this. You're not taking care of yourself. I'm fine, I said weakly. I think there's maybe some in the cabinet. There's nothing, Dorothy, Kristen said firmly. We're taking you to our house tonight. Tomorrow we're going to that elder care appointment and we're making this legal. You need help. Perfect. They'd just confirmed everything I suspected. This wasn't about my well-being. They'd seen an empty refrigerator and dollar signs. Okay, I whispered. If you think it's best. It is, Mom. Trust me. Stephen squeezed my hand. We're going to take good care of you. And don't worry about the finances. I'll handle everything. I bet he would. That night, lying in Stephen's guest room, I texted Walter. Phase 1 complete. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. His response came immediately. I'll be ready. This is going to be interesting. I smiled in the darkness. My son thought he was dealing with a confused, helpless old woman. He had no idea that the empty refrigerator was just the beginning. And tomorrow morning, when he thought he'd be signing papers to take control of my life, he was going to get a very different kind of surprise. Because 48 years of raising a child teaches you a lot of things. And one of them is knowing exactly when someone you love is lying to you. And why. I woke up in Stephen's guest room at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of hushed voices downstairs. Kristen and Stephen, already awake, already planning. I stayed still, listening. Have her sign the power of attorney this morning, Stephen was saying. Walter said once I have that, I can access the accounts immediately. How much do you think is there? Kristen asked. Has to be at least 400,000. Maybe more. Dad's life insurance, her retirement, the house. It's all just sitting there. And she'll sign it today? Did you see her last night? She doesn't even know what day it is. This is going to be easy. My hands clenched under the covers. Easy. My own son thought stealing from me would be easy. I got dressed slowly, carefully, picking out the outfit I'd planned last night. An old cardigan with a small stain on the sleeve. Slightly wrinkled pants, hair uncombed. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the confused, helpless woman staring back. Perfect. When I shuffled downstairs at 7, Stephen was at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. Legal documents, financial forms, all of them with little yellow "Sign Here" tabs. Morning, Mom. How'd you sleep? Is it morning? I blinked at the window. I thought, wasn't it just nighttime? Stephen and Kristen exchanged glances. He pushed a cup of coffee toward me. Drink this, Mom. We have an important appointment this morning. Appointment? I stared at the coffee like I'd never seen it before. With elder care services, remember? And then we're going to see a lawyer. My lawyer, Walter Bennett. He's going to help us get your affairs in order. Oh, the irony. Stephen had chosen Walter because he'd handled the business loan paperwork 5 years ago. Stephen thought Walter was his lawyer. He had no idea that Walter and I had been friends for 30 years, or that Walter had called me 2 months ago with some very disturbing questions. "Mr. Harrison," Walter had said over lunch, "I need to ask you something uncomfortable. Your son came to see me last week. He wanted information on declaring someone mentally incompetent. He mentioned you by name. That conversation had opened my eyes. That's when I'd started noticing other things. Stephen's sudden interest in my health, Kristen's pointed questions about my will, the way they'd started treating me like I was fragile, helpless. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to how this all started. Stephen met Kristen 10 years ago at a business conference in Seattle. She was working registration, 20 years younger than most attendees, with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. Within 6 months, they were married. Within a year, Tyler and Madison, Stephen's kids from his first marriage, barely visited anymore. The changes had been subtle at first. Stephen used to call every week. After Kristen, it was every other week, then monthly, then only on holidays. When George, my husband, died 15 years ago, Stephen had been devastated. He'd stayed with me for 2 weeks, handling everything, making sure I was okay. But after Kristen, when I'd mentioned feeling lonely, Stephen suggested I look into senior communities. When I'd asked him to help fix my fence last summer, he'd sent a contractor and a bill. "Mom, I'm busy with the business. I can't just drop everything." The business I'd funded with $95,000 of my retirement savings. 5 years ago, Stephen had come to me with an opportunity, a chance to expand his consulting firm, take on bigger clients, maybe even go national. He just needed capital. Banks wouldn't loan to him. His credit was damaged from the divorce, he'd explained. "It's a sure thing, Mom. Guaranteed returns. I'll have you paid back in 2 years, plus 20% interest." I'd written the check because he was my son, because I wanted to help him succeed, because that's what mothers do. He'd never paid back a single dollar, never even mentioned it again. When I'd brought it up once, a year later, he'd gotten defensive. "You said it was a gift, Mom." "I said it was an investment in your business." Same thing. Family helps family. Apparently that philosophy only worked one direction. I snapped back to the present. Stephen was pushing papers toward me. "Mom, these are just formalities, standard stuff. Power of attorney, so I can help manage your bills. Healthcare proxy, so I can make medical decisions if needed. Asset transfer authorization." Wait. I touched the last document with a trembling finger. "What's this one?" "Just a precaution. It transfers ownership of your house and accounts into a trust, with me as trustee. Protects you from scammers, fraud, all that stuff we talked about." Translation. It gave him complete control of everything I owned. "I don't know." I let my voice waver. "Mom, we talked about this. You need help. You can't even remember to buy groceries. But the house, that's where George and I—" "You'll still live there," Kristen interrupted smoothly. "We're not kicking you out. This just protects you legally. It's what's best." What's best for them, she meant. I'd done my homework. I knew exactly what a trust like this would mean. Stephen would have complete control. He could sell my house, drain my accounts, put me in the cheapest nursing home he could find, and I'd have no legal recourse. "Okay," I whispered finally. "If you really think—" "I do, Mom. Trust me. I'm looking out for you." At 8:30, we drove to Walter's office. Stephen practically vibrated with anticipation. Kristen kept glancing at her phone, probably already mentally spending my money. Walter's secretary showed us into the conference room. Stephen laid out all his papers on the big table. "Mr. Bennett will be right with you," she said, giving me the briefest wink. When Walter walked in, he wasn't alone. A woman in a navy suit followed him, carrying a briefcase. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Walter Bennett, and this is District Attorney Sarah Chen." "Wait, what?" Stephen stood up. Why is the DA here? Please sit down, Mr. Harrison. Walter's voice had gone cold. There are some irregularities in your petition that require clarification. Irregularities? What are you talking about? You're supposed to be helping me get my mother's affairs in order. I'm your mother's attorney, Mr. Harrison. I have been for 30 years. Stephen's face went white. But you handled my business loan. You said, I handled paperwork for a business transaction. That doesn't make me your lawyer. It makes me a lawyer your mother recommended because she trusted me to make sure everything was legitimate. Walter opened a folder. Which is why I was very concerned when you came to me 2 months ago asking about conservatorship proceedings. This is ridiculous. Stephen grabbed his papers. Mom, we're leaving. This man is clearly not acting in your best interests. Sit down, Stephen. My voice came out clear, strong. Nothing like the confused whisper I'd been using. Stephen froze. Mom? I pulled off my cardigan, revealing the neat blouse underneath. Ran my fingers through my hair, straightening it. Looked my son directly in the eye. Sit down. He sat. Ms. Chen, I said calmly. Perhaps you'd like to start? The district attorney smiled slightly. Mrs. Harrison came to our office 3 weeks ago with concerns about elder fraud, specifically concerns that her son was attempting to illegally gain control of her assets through false claims of incompetence. That's insane, Stephen shouted. She can't even remember to buy food. The empty refrigerator? I smiled. Acting. The confusion? Acting. The forgotten birthday? I sent Tyler a card and $200. He has the canceled check to prove it. Kristen stood up. This is entrapment. This is protecting myself, I said quietly. From my own son. Stephen stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Mom, why would you? Because you were planning to steal from me. My voice remained steady. You were going to declare me incompetent, take control of my assets, and drain my accounts. Don't bother denying it. I heard you and Kristen this morning. At least $400,000, you said. This is going to be easy. His face crumbled, not with shame, with fury. That money should be mine anyway. Dad left it to you, but I'm his son. Your father left everything to me because I was his wife, because we built our life together. You got $50,000 in his will, Stephen. $50,000 you spent in 6 months. On the business, on a boat, on a timeshare in Mexico, on God knows what else. I pulled out my own folder. This is the loan agreement you signed 5 years ago. $95,000 to be repaid within 2 years at 20% interest. You owe me $114,000, Stephen, plus 5 years of compounding interest. You said that was a gift. I never said that. You did. Repeatedly. Until you'd convinced yourself it was true. Walter slid another document across the table. We've also discovered that Mr. Harrison has been accessing his mother's credit cards without authorization. Small charges at first. Gas, groceries. Then larger purchases. Over the past 6 months, he's charged approximately $48,000 to cards registered in his mother's name. Stephen's face went from white to gray. Mom, I can explain. Then there's this. Sarah Chen opened her briefcase. Phone records show you and your wife have made 17 calls to various assisted living facilities in the past 3 months. Most of them specifically asking about costs, Medicaid acceptance, and what happens to patients' assets upon admission. Kristen was edging toward the door. I think we should go. You're not going anywhere, Mrs. Harrison. Sarah's voice was steel. We have evidence of conspiracy to commit elder fraud, attempted theft through false pretenses, and identity theft. Those are felonies. The room went silent. Stephen's hands were shaking. Mom, please. I made mistakes, okay? But you're my mother. You wouldn't really press charges? Wouldn't I? I looked at the man across from me and struggled to recognize my son. You came into my home and threatened me. You tried to convince me I was losing my mind. You planned to take everything I have and lock me away in some facility where I'd be too confused and medicated to fight back. We wouldn't have... Yes, you would have. I've spent 2 months investigating you, Stephen. I know about the gambling debts. I know about the business that's failing because you're too busy playing golf to actually work. I know that Kristen has credit cards maxed out to $60,000 that you don't even know about. Kristen's face went sheet white. I know everything. And you know what the worst part is? If you'd just asked me for help, I would have given it. If you'd been honest about struggling, I would have been there for you. Instead, you decided it was easier to make me the villain in your story. The confused old woman who couldn't manage her own life. I stood up. Walter and Sarah stood with me. Here's what's going to happen. You have 30 days to repay the $95,000 plus interest. After that, I'm filing a civil suit. The credit card fraud. That's between you and the district attorney's office. Mom, I don't have that kind of money. Then sell the boat. Sell the timeshare. Sell whatever you need to sell. Figure it out. And if I can't, then you'll face the consequences of your choices, like an adult. I picked up my purse. Walter will be in touch with payment arrangements. Do not contact me directly. Do not come to my house. Do not call me. Any communication goes through my attorney. I walked toward the door. Stephen called after me, his voice breaking. I'm your son. I stopped, turned back, looked at him with all the love and disappointment a mother's heart could hold. Then act like it. The drive home from Walter's office felt longer than the 30 minutes it actually took. Janet was waiting on my front porch, her face anxious. Well, how did it go? I sat down heavily on the porch swing. About as well as I expected. Stephen's facing fraud charges unless he pays me back. Kristen's in even deeper trouble with the credit cards. Janet handed me a glass of sweet tea. You did the right thing, Dot. Did I? I'd just destroyed my relationship with my only son. I'd watched him leave that office looking like I'd physically struck him. And despite everything he'd tried to do to me, my heart was breaking. He hates me now, I said quietly. He'll get over it, eventually. And if he doesn't? Janet squeezed my shoulder. Then he's not the man you raised him to be. And that's on him, not you. The house felt too quiet when I went inside. All my food was still at Janet's. I'd have to go get it, put everything back, return to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. My phone rang. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. Grandma? Hey, sweetheart. Dad called. He's pretty upset. He said you're accusing him of trying to steal from you? I closed my eyes. Of course Stephen would call the kids, try to get them on his side. Tyler, I need to tell you something. Can you come over? Bring Madison if she's around. We're actually both at coffee shop near you. We can be there in 10 minutes. They arrived in 8. Tyler's 22 now, studying engineering at Portland State. Madison's 19, pre-med at Lewis and Clark. Smart kids, good kids. Despite everything, Stephen had raised them right. Before Kristen, anyway. I sat them down and told them everything. The empty refrigerator, the staged confusion, the lawyer's office, the charges. I showed them the loan documents, the credit card statements, the phone records. Tyler's face got redder with each revelation. Madison started crying halfway through. I'm sorry you had to hear all this, I finished. I know he's your father. He tried to have you declared incompetent? Tyler's voice shook. Grandma, that's evil. I don't think he saw it that way. I think he convinced himself it was for my own good. People are really good at justifying things when they want something badly enough. Madison wiped her eyes. Kristen put him up to this. I know she did. Ever since Dad married her, everything's been about money. She's always asking how much things cost, what people are worth. Your father made his own choices, sweetie. He's a grown man. But we heard them fighting last month, Tyler said. Kristen was screaming about bills, about needing money. She said if Dad's rich mother wouldn't help voluntarily, maybe it was time to take matters into their own hands. I felt cold. You heard that? We didn't understand what it meant at the time. We thought maybe she wanted Dad to ask you for a loan. Tyler's hands clenched. But she meant this. She meant stealing from you. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Madison asked the question I'd been dreading. What happens now? Now? Stephen has 30 days to pay back what he owes. If he can't, there'll be a civil suit. The credit card fraud. That's criminal. The DA will decide whether to press charges. Will you? Tyler asked. Press charges? I thought about that morning. Standing in Walter's office, watching Stephen's face as he realized his plan had failed. The anger in his eyes. The entitlement. I don't want to, I said honestly. He's my son, but I can't let him think this is okay. I can't enable this behavior. What do you need from us? Madison asked. Nothing. This isn't your fight. You're our grandmother. Of course it's our fight. She took my hand. Tyler and I have been worried about Dad for a while now. The way he talks to you, like you're a burden. The way Kristen treats you like you're stupid. We've called him out on it, but he just makes excuses. After Mom died, Tyler said slowly, Dad changed. He got bitter. Started acting like the world owed him something. Then Kristen showed up and made it worse. She's always pushing him to want more, do more, be more. Nothing's ever enough for her. Your father's first wife, Sarah, was a good woman. What happened to her was tragedy. Cancer at 38, Madison said softly. We don't remember her very well. I was only 7. But people always said she was kind. She was. And she would have been horrified by what Stephen tried to do today. Tyler stood up, pacing my living room. I want to help you, Grandma. Whatever you need. If Dad can't pay you back, Madison and I have some savings. Absolutely not. That's your money for school, for your future. Our future? He laughed bitterly. What future? Dad's about to lose everything. The business is tanking because he's too busy scheming to actually work. And when it all comes crashing down, guess who Kristen's going to blame? Not herself. She'll blame you. Let her. I'm serious, Grandma. Kristen's dangerous. I don't mean physically, but she's manipulative. She's already turned Dad against you. She'll turn everyone else she can. I hadn't thought about that. Stephen and Kristen had friends, connections. They could spin this story however they wanted. The ungrateful mother, the greedy old woman, the confused widow who'd turned on her only son. Then people will believe what they want to believe, I said firmly. I have the truth. I have documents, recordings, evidence. Anyone who matters will see that. We talked for another hour. Tyler and Madison helped me bring all the food back from Janet's house. We restocked the refrigerator, filled the pantry, returned everything to normal. By the time they left, promising to check on me daily, the house looked like nothing had ever happened, but everything had happened. And nothing would ever be the same. That night, I sat in George's old recliner, I still called it his, even after 15 years, and stared at the family photos on the wall. Stephen's baby pictures, his high school graduation, his wedding to Sarah, the grandkids at various ages. There was only one photo of Stephen and Kristen's wedding. Small ceremony, city hall, no family invited. We wanted it intimate, Stephen had explained. I'd cried that night, wondering why my son hadn't wanted me there for one of the most important days of his life. Now I knew. Kristen had been planning this from the start. Keep the family separated, isolated. Easier to manipulate Stephen when I wasn't around to ask questions. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You're going to regret this. You've destroyed your own son. Hope you're happy with yourself. Kristen. Had to be. I blocked the number. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to my bedroom closet and pulled down the box from the top shelf. George's box. The one with his old letters, photos, memories. At the bottom was a letter he'd written me shortly before he died. I'd only read it once at his funeral, and then put it away because it hurt too much. I read it now. My darling Dot, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I wanted more time with you. More years. More moments. But life doesn't always give us what we want. It gives us what we get. And what I got was 47 beautiful years with you. Not enough, but precious anyway. Take care of Stephen. He's going to need you more than he knows. He's strong, but he's also stubborn, like his old man. Sometimes strong people need saving from themselves. Love him, but don't let him walk all over you. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Don't let anyone, not even our son, make you forget that. I love you. Always have. Always will. Even now, wherever I am. You're George. I folded the letter carefully, tears running down my face. I'm trying, George, I whispered. I'm trying to save him from himself. I just don't know if it's working. But I knew one thing. George was right. I was strong. I'd survived losing my husband. I'd raised a son alone. I'd built a life, maintained my independence, protected what was mine. And I'd be damned if I'd let anyone, not even Stephen, take that from me. 3 days later, Walter called. Dot, we have a problem. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Stevens filed a counter motion. He's claiming you coerced him into signing the original loan documents, that you weren't mentally sound at the time, and that the money was always intended as a gift. He's also claiming you're suffering from paranoid delusions, and that yesterday's meeting was evidence of your declining mental state. I sat down hard on the kitchen chair. He's trying to turn this around on me. Yes, and he's hired a very expensive lawyer to help him do it. Someone's funding this defense, and I don't think it's Stephen. Kristen's parents? Possibly. Or she's got other sources. We're looking into it. Walter paused. Dot, this is going to get ugly. He's going to fight. Are you sure you want to proceed? What choice do I have? If I back down now, he'll know he can get away with anything. All right, then we fight back. But I need you to be prepared. Stephen's going to do everything he can to make you look unstable. He'll twist every interaction you've had, question every decision you've made. Let him try. I've got 30 years of sound financial records, clean medical reports, and testimonies from everyone who actually knows me. Good, because we go to preliminary hearing next week. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at nothing. This was really happening. My son was going to stand in a courtroom and try to convince a judge that I was crazy. Janet came over that afternoon with a casserole and moral support. You look like hell, Dot. I feel like hell. Stephen's counterfiling? How did you know? Please. This is Portland, not New York. Word travels. Plus, Kristen's been all over Facebook posting about her poor husband being victimized by his unstable mother. I closed my eyes. She's building a narrative. She's trying to. But people who know you aren't buying it. I've already had 5 neighbors call me asking what really happened. I set them straight. What did you tell them? The truth. That Stephen tried to steal from you and you stopped him. Janet squeezed my hand. People know you, Dot. They know you're sharp as a tack. They're not going to believe Kristen's lies. But would a judge believe them? That's what kept me awake that night. The preliminary hearing came faster than I wanted. Stephen showed up with his lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. Kristen sat in the gallery, playing the concerned daughter-in-law perfectly. Stephen's lawyer painted a picture of a confused, paranoid old woman who'd turned against her loving son. He submitted evidence, emails where I'd supposedly made mistakes, phone calls where I'd seemed disoriented, testimonies from people who'd noticed I'd slowed down. It was all garbage. The confused emails were times I'd made typos, like everyone does. The disoriented phone calls were times I'd been gardening and distracted. The slowing down was me choosing to walk instead of rush everywhere. But this lawyer made it sound like I was 3 steps from a dementia diagnosis. When it was our turn, Walter systematically destroyed every claim. He presented my medical records, clean bill of health, no cognitive issues. He showed my financial records, decades of sound decisions, growing investments, 0 concerning patterns. He brought in testimonies from Janet, from my doctor, from the president of my gardening club, from Tyler and Madison. Then he played the recording. I'd forgotten about that, but Walter hadn't. When Stephen and Kristen had come to my house that first day, I'd been wearing the medical alert pendant George had insisted I get years ago. It had a built-in recorder for emergencies. I'd recorded the entire conversation. The courtroom heard Stephen say, "Whether you cooperate or not, this is happening. I've already consulted with attorneys." They heard Kristen say, "How much do you think is there? Has to be at least 400,000. They heard Stephen say, "This is going to be easy." The judge's face darkened with each word. When the recording ended, she looked at Stephen like he was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Mr. Harrison, you and your attorney are claiming your mother is mentally unstable and that she's paranoid. Yet this recording suggests she had very good reason to be concerned about your intentions." Stephen's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, that recording was made without my client's knowledge. In the state of Oregon, one-party consent is sufficient for recording. Mrs. Harrison had every right to record a conversation taking place in her own home." The judge turned to Stephen. "I'm dismissing your counterclaim. The original loan agreement stands. You have 30 days to make payment arrangements, or Mrs. Harrison is free to pursue collection through civil court." Stephen's face went purple. "This is ridiculous. She's my mother. Which makes your actions even more reprehensible, Mr. Harrison." The judge's voice was ice. "You attempted to defraud your own mother. You tried to have her declared incompetent so you could access her assets. That's elder abuse, sir. You should be grateful your mother chose civil proceedings instead of criminal prosecution. She's vindictive. She's protecting herself, as she has every right to do." The judge gathered her papers. "We're done here. Clerk, please ensure Mr. Harrison receives the payment schedule." Stephen stormed out. Kristen followed, shooting me a look of pure hatred. But I noticed something else. I noticed how Stephen walked right past his own children, who'd shown up to support me. I noticed how Madison tried to stop him, and he brushed her off without a word. Outside the courthouse, Tyler hugged me tight. "You did it, Grandma. We did it. You two testifying about what you heard. That made a difference." "What happens now?" Madison asked. "Now we wait and see if Stephen actually pays up, or if this gets even messier." It got messier. A week after the hearing, I received a certified letter. Stephen was declaring bankruptcy. Under Chapter 7, bankruptcy protection, he could eliminate most of his debts, including what he owed me. I called Walter immediately. "Can he do that?" "Unfortunately, yes. If he successfully completes the bankruptcy, the loan debt could be discharged. There are some exceptions for fraudulent debt, but we'd have to prove fraud, which means more legal proceedings. So he's going to weasel out of paying me back? He's going to try. But Dot?" Walter's voice held a note of satisfaction. "Bankruptcy isn't the escape he thinks it is. It destroys his credit. It means liquidating assets. The boat, the timeshare, probably his business equipment. He'll lose almost everything." "Good. There's more. I did some digging into Kristen's background. Want to know what I found?" "Tell me." "This isn't her first marriage. She was married before, to a man named Robert Patterson. Older gentleman, early 60s, moderately wealthy. They were married for 3 years. In year 2, Robert started showing signs of cognitive decline. In year 3, Kristen had herself appointed as his guardian. 6 months later, Robert was in a memory care facility, and Kristen had access to all his accounts. My blood ran cold. She's done this before. She's done this before. Robert's children tried to fight it, claimed Kristen had manipulated their father. But by the time they got lawyers involved, most of the money was gone. Spent on care for Robert. When Robert died, of a sudden stroke, conveniently, there was nothing left. His kids couldn't prove anything criminal, but the whole situation reeked. Does Stephen know about this? I doubt it. Kristen used her maiden name, Patterson, during that marriage. After Robert died, she went back to her real maiden name, Burke. When she married Stephen, she became Kristen Harrison. Unless someone dug deep enough to connect all 3 names, it wouldn't show up. So she saw Stephen as her next mark. That's my assessment. Older man, recent divorce, vulnerable. She probably thought it would be easy money. But Stephen didn't have as much as she thought. So she started looking at the next generation. You. That woman has been living in my son's house, sleeping in his bed, raising his children, and planning to rob him blind the whole time, Walter finished. The question is, do we tell Stephen? I thought about that. Part of me wanted to. Wanted to show Stephen exactly what kind of woman he'd married. But another part of me knew it wouldn't matter. Stephen had chosen to believe Kristen over me. He'd made that choice repeatedly. Not yet, I said finally. Let him figure it out on his own. Maybe he needs to hit rock bottom before he's ready to see the truth. You're nicer than I would be. I'm not nice. I'm strategic. If we tell him now, Kristen will spin it somehow. Make herself the victim. But if Stephen discovers it himself, that's different. 2 days later, Tyler called. Grandma, I need to tell you something. Dad and Kristen had a massive fight last night. We heard the whole thing. What happened? Dad found out about the credit cards. He thought it was $60,000 like you said. It's actually $115,000. Kristen's been hiding statements, opening new cards, forging his signature. When he confronted her, she said it was his fault for not making enough money. How did Stephen take that? He threw her out, told her to stay at her mother's for a while. But Grandma, Tyler's voice dropped. Before she left, I heard her on the phone with someone. She was laughing. She said, "Don't worry, this is all part of the plan. By next month, I'll have access to everything, and he won't be able to do anything about it. She's planning something else. I think she's going to try to have Dad declared incompetent. The same thing they tried with you." I felt my world tilt. Stephen would never fall for that. Would he? Dad's a mess right now, Grandma. He's depressed, drinking, not sleeping. Kristen could claim he's having a breakdown. Get doctors to say he's not capable of managing his affairs. Then she becomes his guardian, controls everything. And Dad ends up just like her first husband. Her first husband? Tyler paused. You know about Robert Patterson? Walter found out. How do you know? Madison and I hired a private investigator last month. We've been worried about Kristen for a while. The PI found the whole history. We were going to tell you, but then everything happened with Dad trying to steal from you. Does your father know? Not unless you told him. We wanted to, but we thought it might make things worse. Now I'm thinking we should have said something sooner. I thought fast. If Kristen was planning to have Stephen declared incompetent, I couldn't let that happen. Stephen had tried to do the same thing to me. Yes, he'd hurt me deeply, but he was still my son, and I wouldn't let Kristen destroy him. Tyler, I need you to get me copies of everything your PI found. Every document, every record, every piece of evidence about Kristen's past. Why? Because we're going to save your father from himself. Again. The documentation Tyler provided was damning. 3 marriages, all to older men. 3 instances of convenient cognitive decline, followed by guardian appointments. 3 estates drained to nothing. And in all 3 cases, the men had died within 2 years of Kristen gaining control. Robert Patterson, stroke. James Wilson, heart attack. David Burke, fall downstairs. All ruled accidental or natural. None investigated thoroughly. She's a black widow, Walter said when I showed him the files. And she's been perfecting her technique. Can we prove anything criminal? Not without an investigation. And even then she's been careful. Nothing overtly suspicious, just a pattern of unfortunate coincidences. Convenient coincidences. Very. Walter studied the documents. But we can prove fraud. We can prove she lied to Stephen about her background. And we can definitely prove she's planning to manipulate him the same way she manipulated her previous husbands. How do we warn Stephen without him thinking I'm just trying to get revenge? We don't warn him, we show him. Walter had a plan. It was risky. It required Stephen to trust us, at least a little bit. But it was the only way. 3 days later, Stephen received a letter from his lawyer. But this letter wasn't from the bankruptcy attorney. It was from a completely different firm, one that specialized in elder abuse cases. The letter informed Stephen that they were investigating Kristen Burke Harrison for suspected financial exploitation and fraud. The letter mentioned Robert Patterson by name. It mentioned the suspicious circumstances of his death, and it mentioned that Stephen himself might be at risk. Stephen called me that night. First time he'd called me directly since the courthouse. "Mom?" His voice was shaky. Scared. "Stephen, did you send me this letter?" "No, but I know about it." "Is it true? About Kristen's past?" "Every word. Walter has documentation if you want to see it." Silence. Then, "She tried to do to me what she did to them. That's what you're saying." "That's what I'm saying." "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me?" 2 weeks ago. You were trying to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my money. You wouldn't even look at me in court." More silence. When Stephen spoke again, his voice broke. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I don't even know how I got here, how I became this person. You married someone who saw you as a target, not a partner. And she's very good at what she does. I've been such an idiot. Yes, you have. I wasn't going to coddle him. But you're my idiot, and I'm not going to let her destroy you. What do I do? First, you get a different lawyer, not the bankruptcy guy. He might be on Kristen's payroll. Someone Walter recommends. Someone who specializes in fraud. Okay. Second, you freeze all joint accounts. You lock her out of everything you can lock her out of. She'll fight back. Let her. The more she fights, the more she reveals. We've got private investigators watching her now. Every move she makes is being documented. You're helping me? After everything? I looked at George's photo on the mantel, thought about what he'd written. Sometimes strong people need saving from themselves. You're my son, Stephen. I'm always going to help you, even when you don't deserve it. Especially when you don't deserve it. He started crying then, big, gasping sobs. I tried to steal from you. I tried to have you locked away. How can you forgive that? I haven't forgiven it. Not yet. But I love you anyway. That's what mothers do. I don't deserve you. No, you don't. But you've got me anyway. I softened my voice slightly. Stephen, I need you to understand something. Kristen is dangerous, not just financially. The men she's done this to before, they all died, unexpectedly, under circumstances that were just suspicious enough to notice but not suspicious enough to investigate. You think she'd kill me? I think she's capable of anything. I think you need to be very, very careful. And I think you need to get away from her before she tries something desperate. I kicked her out. She's at her mother's. That's a start, but it's not enough. You need a restraining order. You need security. And you need to move fast, because the moment she realizes you're onto her, she's going to either run or escalate. Will you help me? 4 weeks ago, my son had stood in my house and threatened to take everything from me. He'd called me incompetent. He'd tried to rob me blind. And now he was asking for my help. Yes, I said. I'll help you. But Stephen, this is the last time. You mess up again, you're on your own. Understood? Understood. Good. Be at Walter's office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring every document you have about Kristen. Marriage certificate, bank statements, everything. We're going to build a case that'll protect you and put her away. Thank you, Mom. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're still alive. I hung up and sat in the silence of my house. Janet had been right. Stephen had needed to hit bottom before he could see the truth. And maybe, just maybe, we'd caught him before Kristen could finish whatever she'd been planning. But something bothered me. Something Kristen had said on the phone, according to Tyler. By next month, I'll have access to everything. What was happening next month? What was I missing? I pulled out my calendar. December was next month. What was significant about December? Then I saw it. December 15th. The date I'd circled 6 months ago. The date of my annual physical. The date when my doctor updated all my medical records and insurance information. The date when someone with access to my medical files could potentially alter them. Add diagnoses. Create evidence of cognitive decline. Kristen hadn't given up on me as a target. She'd just changed tactics. Stephen was plan A, but I was plan B, and she'd been working on both plans simultaneously. I called Walter back immediately. We have a bigger problem than we thought. Walter arrived at my house within 30 minutes, laptop in hand. Tell me what you're thinking. I showed him my calendar. December 15th, my annual physical. Every year, Dr. Morrison updates my complete medical file, runs cognitive assessments, updates insurance records. It's all digitized now, stored in the hospital system. And you think Kristen has access? I think Kristen has access to something. She's too confident. That phone call Tyler heard. By next month, I'll have access to everything. She wasn't just talking about Stephen's accounts. She was talking about creating a paper trail that would make me look incompetent. Walter's face darkened. If she could alter your medical records, add false diagnoses, fake test results, she could build a legal case for conservatorship that would be almost impossible to fight. Real medical documentation from a real doctor's office. Who would question it? We need to find out if she actually has access to the hospital system. I already called someone who might know. I glanced at my watch. She should be here any minute. The doorbell rang. Dr. Helen Morrison, my physician for 20 years, stood on my porch looking worried. Dorothy, your message said it was urgent? I let her in, introduced her to Walter, and explained our suspicions. Helen listened, her face growing paler with each detail. Oh, God, she breathed when I finished. Dorothy, 3 weeks ago, we hired a new medical records clerk. Her name is Amanda Burke. She came with excellent references, background check cleared, everything looked legitimate. Burke? Walter pulled out his files. That's Kristen's maiden name. It gets worse. Helen pulled out her phone, showing us a photo from the hospital's staff directory. This is Amanda Burke. It wasn't Kristen. But the resemblance was unmistakable. Same eyes, same smile, just younger. Her sister, I said flatly. Kristen has a sister working in your medical records department. Who has access to every patient file in the system? Helen confirmed. Including yours. Dorothy, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. You couldn't have known. They've perfected this. Walter was already typing on his laptop. Medical fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit elder abuse. These charges are piling up. But we need proof. We need to catch them in the act. The physical, I said. We keep the appointment. We let them think their plan is working. But we document everything, before and after. We create a record of exactly what my real medical status is, and then we watch what changes in the system. Helen nodded slowly. I can run a complete cognitive assessment today, document your baseline. Then after your scheduled physical, I'll check the records to see if anything's been altered. But Dorothy, if they're planning to falsify your medical records, they might be planning something else too. Like what? Like an incident that would justify an emergency conservatorship hearing. A fall. A car accident. Something that would make their fabricated medical concerns seem legitimate. The room went cold. We need protection, Walter said. 24-hour security, cameras, witnesses. We can't give them any opportunity to stage something. I'm not hiding in my own house like a prisoner. You're not. You're being smart. Walter closed his laptop. Dot, this woman has killed 3 times that we know of. She's not going to stop just because we're onto her. If anything, that makes you more of a target. He was right. I hated it. But he was right. Fine, but I want Stephen protected too. If Kristen realizes her plan is falling apart, she might go after him directly. Already arranged. Stephen moved into a secure apartment this morning. Tyler and Madison are staying with him. Nobody gets in without ID and security clearance. I felt a weight lift slightly. At least my grandchildren were safe. Helen ran the cognitive test that afternoon. Memory, reasoning, processing speed. Everything. I scored higher than most 50-year-olds. She documented everything, backed it up to 3 separate secure servers, and gave me printed copies with her signature and timestamp. "Now we wait," Walter said, "and we watch." The waiting was the hardest part. Security cameras went up around my house, inside and out. Janet moved into my guest room, for company. Tyler and Madison visited daily, always at different times, always watching. Stephen came by on day 3. He looked terrible. Thinner, dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking slightly. "Mom, His voice broke. "I don't know how to apologize for what I've done." "Then don't. Not yet. Apologize when this is over and you've actually changed." He nodded, accepting that. "Kristen's been calling, texting, showing up at my apartment building. Security won't let her up, but she's persistent." "What's she saying?" "That I'm making a mistake, that you've turned me against her, that if I'd just listen, she could explain everything." He laughed bitterly. She actually used the phrase "explain everything," like there's an explanation for marrying 3 men and watching them die. She's desperate. That makes her dangerous. I know. That's why I hired private security too. Everywhere I go, someone's watching. He looked around my living room, at the cameras, the new locks, the panic buttons Walter had installed. We're both prisoners because of her. We're both survivors. There's a difference. Stephen picked up one of the photo albums from the coffee table. Pictures of him as a child. Him and George fishing. Him graduating high school. "I was a good kid once, wasn't I?" "You were a great kid." "What happened to me, Mom?" I thought about that. About the slow erosion of the man he'd been. About Kristen's careful manipulation, her strategic isolation, her constant pushing for more. "You got lost," I said finally. "You married someone who saw your weaknesses and exploited them instead of someone who saw your strengths and celebrated them. You let grief over Sarah turn into bitterness. You let financial stress turn into desperation. And Kristen took all of that and twisted it into something ugly. Can I come back from this?" "I don't know, Stephen." "That's up to you." He stayed for an hour. We didn't talk about money or lawyers or Kristen. We talked about Tyler's engineering project, about Madison's pre-med program, about George and the time he'd taught Stephen to drive and they'd accidentally backed into a mailbox. When he left, he hugged me. "First time in 5 years. I love you, Mom." "I love you too, Stephen. Even when I don't like you very much." He laughed, a real laugh, not the bitter sound I'd been hearing. "That's fair." 2 days later, Amanda Burke made her move. Helen called me at 6 in the morning. "Dorothy, someone accessed your medical files at 2:15 a.m. They added 3 diagnoses: moderate dementia, advanced cognitive impairment, and paranoid personality disorder. Can you prove it was Amanda?" "Better, I can prove it was her and show exactly what she changed. I've been running monitoring software since our conversation. Every keystroke, every login, every alteration, it's all documented. Send everything to Walter. And Helen, thank you. Thank you for trusting me. I'm horrified this happened in my hospital." Walter had the evidence on his desk by 7 a.m. By 8, he'd called the DA. By 9, we had a meeting scheduled with law enforcement. But at 8:30, something else happened. I was making coffee when my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw 2 police officers standing on my porch. My first thought was that something had happened to Stephen. I opened the door. "Officers? Mrs. Dorothy Harrison?" "Yes?" "Ma'am, we received a call this morning expressing concern for your welfare. The caller stated that you've been behaving erratically, that you're not taking your medications, and that you may be a danger to yourself. We're here to do a wellness check." My blood ran ice cold. "Who called you?" "A concerned family member. Your daughter-in-law, Kristen Harrison. She said, I'm not her family member. Her husband and I are estranged, and there's nothing wrong with my welfare or my medications." The older officer looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we still need to do the check. It's protocol." Janet appeared from the kitchen. Officers, I'm Dorothy's neighbor. I've been staying with her this week. I can assure you she's perfectly fine. And you are? Janet Walsh. I live across the street. I've known Dorothy for 35 years. The younger officer pulled out a notebook. The caller said Mrs. Harrison has been diagnosed with dementia and paranoid personality disorder. She said Mrs. Harrison's family is concerned she's not receiving proper care. That's a lie. I kept my voice steady, though I wanted to scream. I have no such diagnoses. In fact, I just had a complete cognitive assessment 2 days ago. I can show you the results. We'd appreciate that, ma'am. I brought out Helen's documentation. The officers reviewed it, their expressions shifting from dutiful concern to confusion. This shows you're cognitively sound, the older officer said slowly. Because I am. This is harassment. My daughter-in-law is currently under investigation for elder fraud and medical record falsification. This call was another attempt to make me look incompetent. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime. Call my attorney, Walter Bennett. He'll explain everything. The officers exchanged glances. We'll make a note in our report that you appear healthy and coherent. But ma'am, if your daughter-in-law calls again, document it. Because this is harassment, and it's going to be part of her prosecution. After they left, I called Walter. Kristen's escalating. I know. Stephen just called. She showed up at his office, claiming she has proof that you're forcing him to turn against her. She's threatening to file complaints with Adult Protective Services, to contact the media, to do whatever it takes to destroy my credibility before we can destroy hers. Exactly. But she's making mistakes. Every false report, every documented lie. It all adds to our case against her. When can we arrest her? Soon. The DA wants to build an airtight case. We've got medical fraud, identity theft, elder abuse conspiracy. We're waiting for federal investigators to review the evidence from her previous marriages. If we can connect her to those deaths, how long? Days, maybe a week. Can you hold on that long? I thought about Kristen's desperation, about her pattern of escalating violence when cornered, about 3 dead husbands and a 4th, my son, who might be next. I don't think we have a week, Walter. I think she's going to try something soon. Something big. I was right. That night, Tyler called at 11 p.m., his voice panicked. Grandma, Dad's in the hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? Someone broke into his apartment, attacked him. He's got a concussion, broken ribs. They're running tests. Is he going to be okay? Doctors say yes, but Grandma, the security cameras show someone bypassed the system. Professional job. And when they searched Dad's apartment, they found medication bottles with your name on them. Prescription medications. Strong ones. I don't take any prescription medications except blood pressure pills. I know. But someone planted them there. And the police are saying it looks like Dad might have been stealing your medications, which supports Kristen's claims that you're not mentally sound. It's a frame job. She's framing both of us. There's more. The detective investigating the break-in? He said they received an anonymous tip this afternoon that Dad had been making threats against Kristen, that he was violent. The tip came with photos of text messages that seemed to show Dad saying he wanted to hurt her. Fake messages. Obviously fake to us, but to police who don't know the full story? It looks like Dad's unstable, you're incompetent, and Kristen's the victim. I sat down hard. Kristen wasn't just escalating. She was creating an alternate reality where she was innocent, and we were the criminals. Tyler, listen to me carefully. Get Madison and get to my house now. Don't go back to Stephen's apartment. Don't stop anywhere. Just come here. What about Dad? Hospital security will protect him better than you can right now. I need you two safe. Move. Now. They arrived 20 minutes later, both scared. I had them pack into Janet's car. My car was too recognizable. We drove to Walter's house. Walter opened the door in his bathrobe, took one look at our faces, and said, "She made her move." Multiple moves. Attack on Stephen, planted medications, fake threatening texts. She's trying to flip the entire narrative before we can arrest her. Then we flip it back. Tonight. Now. Walter grabbed his phone. I'm calling the DA. We're doing this tonight. By 2 a.m., we were in a conference room at the district attorney's office. Present. Me, Walter, the DA, 2 federal investigators, a detective from Portland PD, and via video call, Helen Morrison and the hospital's legal counsel. The DA laid out the case. We have evidence of medical record fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and now assault. But to make the strongest case, we need to connect Kristen to her previous crimes. Agent Morrison? She gestured to one of the federal investigators. Agent Morrison, no relation to Helen, pulled up crime scene photos on the large screen. Robert Patterson, first husband. Died of a stroke at age 63. Autopsy showed elevated levels of blood-thinning medication that wasn't prescribed to him. At the time, it was ruled accidental overdose. Patterson had heart issues, took multiple medications, easy-to-confuse pills. But it wasn't accidental, I said. We don't think so. We're exhuming the body next week for additional toxicology. Same with husband number 2, James Wilson. Heart attack at 58. He was healthy, no risk factors. But medical records showed he'd been prescribed several medications in the months before his death. Medications that, when combined, can cause cardiac events. Who prescribed those medications? Different doctors, different clinics. No single physician knew about all of them. Classic drug interaction setup. The second federal agent spoke up. Husband number 3, David Burke. Fall downstairs. He had high levels of sedatives in his system. His daughter claimed he never took sleeping pills, but found a prescription bottle in his medicine cabinet after his death. Prescribed by a walk-in clinic, filled at a pharmacy nowhere near his home. Let me guess, Walter said. Kristen picked up the prescription. Signed for it herself. We have the paperwork. So she's done this 3 times successfully, the DA said. Now she's trying for a 4th with Stephen and setting up Dorothy as collateral damage. Or as the primary target now, I corrected. Stephen's attack tonight, that could have been meant to kill him. Or it could have been meant to incapacitate him while she goes after me. Which is why you're not going home tonight, the DA said firmly. We're putting you in protective custody until we can arrest Kristen. No. Everyone stared at me. No, I repeated. If I disappear, Kristen wins the narrative. I'm the crazy old lady who had to be taken away for her own safety. We need to catch her in the act. Absolutely not, Walter said. This woman kills people. I'm aware. I'm also aware that we need to end this now, not drag it out for months of legal proceedings. You want to catch her? Use me as bait. That's too dangerous. It's the only way. Set up surveillance at my house. Let word leak that I'm home alone, scared, vulnerable. When Kristen comes, and she will come, you'll catch her. The DA considered this. It could work. But Mrs. Harrison, you'd be putting yourself at serious risk. I've been at serious risk for months, at least this way. I'm the one in control. They argued with me for another hour, but eventually they agreed. By dawn, we had a plan. I would return home that morning. Tyler and Madison would make a very visible, very loud exit, announcing they had to get back to school. Janet would leave too, again very publicly, complaining that she had her own house to maintain. The house would be wired with cameras and audio in every room. Undercover officers would be stationed around the neighborhood. A SWAT team would be on standby 3 blocks away. And I would wait. If Kristen shows up, don't confront her, Agent Morrison instructed. Don't let her know you're onto her. Act confused, vulnerable. Let her think she's winning. I've been acting for months. I can do this. If she tries to give you anything, food, drink, medication, take it but don't consume it. We need evidence. Understood. Walter drove me home at 7 a.m. Tyler and Madison put on a good show, hugging me goodbye on the front porch, loud enough for any watching neighbors to hear. We'll be back next week, Grandma. Call if you need anything. Janet left an hour later, also announcing her departure. I've got my own house falling apart, Dorothy. You call me if you need help, all right? Then the house was empty. Quiet. Just me and a dozen hidden cameras. I made coffee, read the newspaper, worked in my garden, acted perfectly normal. At 2 p.m., a car pulled up. Not Kristen's car. A rental. But Kristen stepped out, carrying a casserole dish and wearing a concerned expression. I watched through the window as she walked up to my door and knocked. Dorothy? It's Kristen. I know things have been difficult, but I wanted to check on you. I took a deep breath, put on my confused old woman face, and opened the door. Kristen? What are you doing here? I heard Tyler and Madison left. I thought you might need some company. She held up the casserole. I made your favorite, chicken and rice. The same dish she'd probably served to Robert Patterson before his fatal stroke. That's kind of you. I let my voice waver. Come in, I suppose. She smiled. But her eyes were cold as ice, and the trap was set. Kristen walked into my house like she owned it, setting the casserole on the kitchen counter. Every move was being recorded by 6 different cameras, including one in the brooch I was wearing. You look tired, Dorothy. Have you been sleeping? Not well. Everything's been so confusing lately. I'm sure it has been. She opened my cabinets, helping herself to plates like she belonged here. Stephen has you all worked up, doesn't he? Telling you lies about me. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe me. I've always cared about you. She served 2 portions of casserole. Here, eat. You need to keep your strength up. I sat at the table, the plate in front of me. Kristen sat across from me, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Go ahead, Dorothy. Eat while it's warm. I picked up my fork, pushed the food around. Actually, I'm not very hungry. You need to eat. Doctor's orders. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. In fact, I've been worried about your medications. Are you taking them regularly? What medications? Your prescriptions. The ones for your memory problems. I don't have memory problems. Of course you do. Don't you remember? Dr. Morrison prescribed them last month. She reached into her purse, pulling out a pill bottle with my name on it. See? You're supposed to take 2 with meals. The bottle was identical to the ones planted in Stephen's apartment. Same pharmacy, same fabricated prescription. I don't remember these. That's exactly the problem, Dorothy. Your memory is going. That's why you need to take your medicine. She shook out 2 pills. Here, take them with some water. I stared at the pills. White, oval, unmarked. Could be anything. Probably something that would make me drowsy, confused. Maybe something worse. I should check with my doctor first. I am checking for you. These are prescribed. You need to take them. Her voice had gone hard. The mask was slipping. I picked up the pills with trembling fingers, brought them to my mouth, paused. What are they for, exactly? For your dementia, Dorothy. Now take them. But I don't have dementia. Yes, you do. That's why you're so confused. That's why you've been accusing Stephen of terrible things. Your mind is going, and these pills will help. I set the pills down. No. Dorothy. I said no. I met her eyes directly. I know what you're doing, Kristen. I know about Robert Patterson, James Wilson, David Burke. I know you killed them. And I know you're trying to kill Stephen and me. For a moment, her face went completely blank. Then she laughed. You really are paranoid, aren't you? Stephen was right to be concerned. The cameras are recording everything. The police are listening to every word. It's over, Kristen. She stopped laughing. Her eyes darted around the room, finding the cameras one by one. When she looked back at me, all pretense was gone. What I saw in her face was pure, cold calculation. Well, she said softly, I guess we're done pretending. She moved faster than I expected. One hand shot across the table, grabbing my wrist. The other reached into her purse. Police! The front door burst open. 3 officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Let her go, hands where we can see them. Kristen released me, but she was smiling, actually smiling. This won't stick. You have nothing. We have you on camera attempting to force medication on an elderly woman, one officer said, handcuffing her. We have recorded confession of intent. We have the fabricated prescription, the falsified medical records. Circumstantial. My lawyer will have this thrown out. Agent Morrison walked in, followed by Walter. We also have exhumation orders for 3 bodies, new toxicology reports. And about an hour ago, your sister Amanda made a deal with federal prosecutors. She's giving us everything. For the first time, Kristen's smile faltered. Amanda wouldn't. She did, facing 20 years for medical fraud versus immunity for testimony. She chose testimony. She's giving us dates, methods, access codes. Every detail of every crime you've committed. You're lying. Am I? Agent Morrison pulled out his phone, playing a video. Amanda Burke, in an interrogation room, crying and talking. Kristen said it was just going to be medical records, just making some old people look incompetent so we could help manage their money. She said no one would get hurt. But then she started asking about medications, about drug interactions, about what would look natural. Kristen lunged for the phone. Officers restrained her. I want my lawyer. You'll get one. At the Federal Detention Center. Agent Morrison nodded to the officers. Take her. As they led her out, she looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, Dorothy. Yes, I said quietly. It is. After they left, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the casserole she'd brought. Walter put on gloves and sealed it in an evidence bag. We'll test it. Probably sedatives, maybe worse. She was going to drug me. Stage a fall or something. Make it look like I hurt myself because of my dementia. But you stopped her. Dot, you were incredibly brave today. I was terrified today. There's a difference. I looked up at him. Is Stephen okay? He's being released from the hospital this afternoon. Tyler and Madison are with him. And Kristen's sister? In custody, cooperating. She's giving us everything. How Kristen recruited her, how they falsified records, the whole operation. I should have felt victorious, relieved. Instead, I just felt tired. Walter, I need to know something. Stephen's apartment, the attack, was that Kristen? We don't think so. The timing doesn't work. She has an alibi for that time. Then who? Walter hesitated. We're still investigating. But Dot, we think it might have been connected to something else entirely. Something we just discovered about Kristen's operation. What do you mean? She wasn't working alone. Amanda helped with the medical records, yes. But there's evidence of at least 2 other people involved. Financial advisors who helped her drain the estates. Lawyers who filed the paperwork. Maybe even someone who carried out the more physical aspects of her crimes. My blood went cold. You're saying she has accomplices, and they're still out there. We're tracking them down. But until we have everyone in custody, I'm still in danger. You're still in danger. And that's when I realized this wasn't over, not even close. 3 days later, the full picture finally emerged. Walter and Agent Morrison came to my house. I was still under protective custody, Janet still staying with me, with a thick file folder. We need to tell you everything, Walter said. And you're not going to like it. I haven't liked anything about this situation from the start. Tell me. Agent Morrison opened the folder. Kristen Burke Harrison wasn't the mastermind. She was a participant in a larger operation. An elder fraud ring that's been operating for at least 15 years. How many victims? That we know of? 23. Total stolen. Approximately $14 million. I felt sick. 23 people. 11 of them are dead. The others were systematically stripped of their assets and placed in care facilities where they could no longer fight back. Who's running this operation? We're still piecing it together. But we've identified several key players. Financial advisors who helped move money. Lawyers who filed fraudulent conservatorships. Medical professionals who falsified records. And enforcers. People who made sure targets didn't cause problems. The person who attacked Stephen. We think so. We arrested a man named Marcus Webb 2 days ago. Former paramedic, fired for drug theft. He admitted to being hired to discourage Stephen from pursuing legal action against Kristen. He was supposed to scare him, not seriously hurt him. But things got out of hand. Who hired him? Agent Morrison exchanged a glance with Walter. That's where things get complicated. Marcus says he was hired by someone named Thomas Crawford. I frowned. That name sounds familiar. It should. Thomas Crawford is a lawyer. He's handled several conservatorship cases over the past decade. And Walter's voice was gentle. He's also the attorney Stephen almost hired for his bankruptcy proceedings. My mouth went dry. Stephen was going to hire someone in the fraud ring? Kristen was directing him there. She wanted Stephen working with their people who would ensure that the bankruptcy was structured to benefit her, not him. But Stephen didn't hire Crawford. No, because we intervened, which made you a threat to their operation. That's why Kristen escalated so quickly. You weren't just stopping her from stealing from you. You were potentially exposing an entire criminal network. I sat back, processing this. So Kristen came after me to protect the whole organization. And to keep her share of the profits. These people work on commission. Every estate they drain, they get a cut. Kristen stood to make close to $1 million from your assets alone. With Stephen's business and insurance, maybe another $200,000. That's significant money. Where's Crawford now? In the wind. Disappeared the day we arrested Kristen. We've frozen his accounts, issued warrants, but he's gone. So he's still out there, along with who knows how many others. We're tracking down everyone we can. But yes, some of them are still out there. Agent Morrison leaned forward. Mrs. Harrison, I need you to understand something. You've dealt a serious blow to this organization. You've exposed them. You've cost them money and put several of their people in prison. They might consider you a threat that needs to be eliminated. You're saying I'm still in danger. I'm saying you need to remain vigilant. We're offering continued protective custody, witness protection if necessary. No. I cut him off. No witness protection. No hiding. I've spent the last 2 months of my life being afraid, being careful, pretending to be weak. I'm done with that. Walter started. I'm 72 years old. I've survived losing my husband, fighting my own son, being targeted by a serial killer. I'm not spending whatever time I have left looking over my shoulder. I stood up. You catch these people. You put them in prison. But I'm going back to my life. Agent Morrison started to argue, then stopped. Something in my face must have told him it would be pointless. All right. But we're keeping surveillance on your house. And if anything suspicious happens, anything at all, you call us immediately. Agreed. After they left, Janet made us both tea and sat across from me at the kitchen table. You're really not scared? I'm terrified, but I'm also done being a victim. I sipped my tea. Kristen almost won because I spent years being polite, being passive, letting things slide. Never again. The doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Stephen, Tyler, and Madison on the porch. I let them in. Stephen still looked rough, bruises fading on his face, moving carefully because of the broken ribs. But his eyes were clearer than I'd seen them in months. Mom, we need to talk. About everything. About the money I tried to steal. About the loan I never paid back. About the way I treated you. He pulled out a check, setting it on the table. This is $114,000, the loan amount plus interest. I sold the boat, the timeshare, and my golf club membership. It's not enough to make up for what I did, but it's a start. I looked at the check, then at my son. Stephen, I don't want your money. Mom, I want my son back. The one who called every week. The one who helped me fix fences and talk to me about real things. I want the man your father raised you to be, not the man Kristen tried to turn you into. Stephen's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can be that person anymore. Then figure it out. Not for me. For yourself. For your kids. I pushed the check back toward him. Keep it. Pay off your debts. Get your life back on track. And when you've done that, when you've proven to yourself that you can be better, then we'll talk about repayment. You're giving me another chance. I'm giving you the chance to give yourself another chance. Don't waste it. Tyler and Madison hugged me. Madison whispered, "Thank you, Grandma, for saving Dad." I didn't save him. He has to save himself. I just gave him the opportunity. After they left, I sat in George's recliner and looked around my house. The house I'd defended. The life I'd protected. The independence I'd fought for. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Major elder fraud ring exposed. 23 victims, multiple arrests. The story was everywhere by evening. National news. My name wasn't mentioned. Privacy protections. But I knew others would see it. Other potential victims. Other families who'd noticed strange things, but hadn't known what to do. Maybe some of them would be saved because I'd fought back. The next morning, I woke up to find Janet making breakfast and humming. Feel like working in the garden today? Actually, I do. We spent the day pulling weeds, planting bulbs for spring, talking about nothing important. Normal. Blessedly normal. At sunset, I sat on my porch swing with a glass of sweet tea and watched the neighborhood come alive with evening activities. Kids playing, dogs barking, cars pulling into driveways as people came home from work. My phone rang. Steven. Hey, Mom. Hey, yourself. I just wanted to say, I enrolled in therapy today, individual sessions, and I'm going to look into some support groups for people who've been in abusive relationships. I'm proud of you. I've got a long way to go. We all do, but you're moving in the right direction. After we hung up, I stayed on the porch as the sun set. 72 years old, widow, mother, grandmother, survivor. George's letter was in my pocket. I'd been carrying it since this all started. I pulled it out, reading the last line again. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Don't let anyone make you forget that. I hadn't forgotten. Not when it mattered most, and I never would again.